On this week's episode of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast, Tesla's 2023 Impact Report has a lot of compelling data in it that you can use to help squash any electric car FUD that anyone might throw your way. Plus, the Tesla Semi visits Europe for the first time, Giga Mexico's construction continues, the Bargersville Police Department gives an update on its Model Y police vehicle pilot program, and more. What's happening, friends? Ryan McCaffrey joining you here for episode 461 of Ride the Lightning. It's your weekly Tesla unofficial podcast. This one for June 2nd, 2024. Daisy the Boxer to my left. And there is some big stuff coming up here that I'm looking forward to covering on Ride the Lightning. In just 2 episodes from now, yes, this is coming right up. Just 2 episodes from now will be my highlights, recap, and analysis of the annual Tesla shareholder meeting. It's going to be a big one because we will find out the results of the shareholder vote on CEO Elon Musk's big pay package, which, if you are plugged into the Tesla community online, and by the way, if you're not, it's totally fine. That's what I'm here for. I plug in so you don't necessarily have to. But you've probably seen ads on social media, you've gotten emails from Tesla. There has been a big push by the company and others to get out and vote on this thing. So I've never seen this ever for any single shareholder proposal. So this is it's going to be an interesting shareholder meeting just for the results of that alone. But as is typical with the shareholder meeting, we should also hear lots of updates on what the company's up to. There's the shareholder Q&A at the end with Elon where people can line up and ask questions. I hope someone, again, asks about the new Roadster like they did last year, and hopefully we'll get some other good questions as well. So that is coming up in 2 episodes from now. That'll be episode 463. Should be a good one. In the meantime, I am off to Los Angeles this coming week for a good chunk of it on business. So I'll be doing next week's podcast, episode 462, from my hotel room there. I'll tell you, I was thinking about it yesterday. I wish I had time to try and organize a listener meetup, like maybe at the Peterson Auto Museum or something, but I will be working the entire time. It's a big week in the world of video games, including all weekend. I'm there from Wednesday through Monday night. So it's going to be a busy one, but I am looking forward to that. Hey, real quick, before I get going with the podcast this week, just a random thought exercise as I was once again, as I do literally every day, if I'm being honest with you, daydreaming about getting a Cybertruck. Well, I was running some numbers on the Cybertruck and trying to save up and my down payment and what I think the options are going to cost and the options that I want. And I think that if I can set aside the cash for it, I think it might, at least in my case, make a not insignificant amount more sense to buy FSD right after delivery rather than roll it into the original order, since unlike in years past, granted it hasn't been this way for a while, but when I bought my Model 3 it was this way, but today there is no penalty for buying FSD after delivery. Because if you have been around long enough, you may remember that it used to be an extra $1,000 if you bought it after delivery than if you bought it before. Tesla was trying to incentivize you to buy it with your original order. Now, somebody in my case who, I admit, this is probably not most people's case, but for me, my plan here with the Cybertruck, the only way I can really afford it is to save up a massive down payment in order to get the monthly payment down to a reasonable enough number on a 5-year loan that I can comfortably handle while still taking care of everything else with my finances and with my family. Because if I can't do that, then the Cybertruck purchase doesn't work for me. So I was running the numbers, and again, I realized my situation might not apply to your situation, but maybe this thought exercise that I'm going to kind of spell out for you here for just a minute, maybe it'll be beneficial to you in some way. And if it's not, I apologize, just humor me for a moment here. But if I can carve out $8,000, the price of FSD, if I carve that out from my down payment, it allows me at that point to then, A, pay no interest on that $8,000 that would have otherwise been rolled into the loan. B, it allows me to get 2% cash back on my credit card, which, that's $160. It's not a fortune. It's not like a game-changing amount of money, but, well, you could look at it a couple different ways. Like, I would say it pays for the Cybertruck pet liner accessory for the second row of seats that I'm going to want to get. Or you could say that it pays for a celebratory dinner on Cybertruck delivery day that night. However you want to look at it. So there's that. And then C, and I recognize this is very much more of a California-specific thing, but it certainly probably it applies to most states, but just maybe not quite to the degree of California. And by that I'm talking about it would also lower my annual registration renewal fee. So again, I realize statistically most of you listening to this live somewhere that has probably reasonable car registration renewal rates, unlike California, which is ridiculously expensive every single year for registration renewal. But I have also looked at Ride the Lightning's back-end metrics, and I do know that many of you are in California. Like the plurality of my American listeners are in California. So all of you know what I'm talking about here. But for context, for you non-Californians, the whole reason that I started thinking about this, I just got my renewal in the mail for my Model 3, because they send it out a couple months in advance. And it is $497 for a 1-year registration renewal for a car that is now turning 6 years old. It does go down every year as the car gets older. I actually went back to just thoroughly do this thought exercise. I went back and looked it up so I could get the number right. My very first renewal, the first time I had to renew it, which was in 2019 because I got the car in 2018, my first renewal was $774. So it does come down, but it's still a lot of money. Now, California, I'm not sure about your state, but California bases it on age and the vehicle's price. So I went to the California DMV's online registration calculator, which is a thing, probably because it costs so much that people want to know what they're in for. So I used their registration calculator, and I got a quote for the Cybertruck with and without FSD. I put in $82,000 for the without FSD price, because that's my estimated price for white interior with the cyber wheels and all-terrain tires. I think it might end up being 83, but maybe it's 2,000 for the tires and cyber wheels and 1,000 for the white decor. But anyway, just it doesn't super matter. It doesn't have to be that exact. I put in 82,000, and then I did a quote for 90,000, so same configuration, but with $8,000 of FSD added in there. The difference without FSD was lower by $52, at least for the first year. Again, not a huge amount, but when you add in the interest that I wouldn't be paying on that $8,000 as part of the overall car loan, it starts to make a lot of sense. And it's also worth noting that the annual registration renewal fee will be lower for however many years I own the truck. It's not just going to be for the time of the loan, because it has nothing to do with that. It would be for the entire length of time that I own the truck would be that lower registration renewal fee. So easily 10 years would be the plan, maybe 20. Who knows? So that could add up to many hundreds of dollars in the course of a decade, and even more than that if we go beyond a decade. Now, of course, it's all contingent on paying off the credit card that I'd be putting the $8,000 FSD charge onto immediately before any interest on that credit card were to kick in. Now, I suppose you could also potentially open a new credit card. You could get a no annual fee, no interest for 1 year credit card, as long as you can get at least an $8,000 limit on it, and then you'd have more time to pay that off without any financial penalty. But anyway, I was thinking about this over the past week, and again, it's that Model 3 registration renewal that I got in the mail that sent me down this rabbit hole on the Cybertruck. So I think I've come to the conclusion, and again, it might not be the same for you, but maybe this thought exercise prompts you to run your own numbers. But I think for me, I'm not going to order full self-driving with the Cybertruck, and I'm just going to put the $8,000 less as a down payment. So I did run the numbers, and in my case, again, putting down a massive down payment, the monthly payment came out exactly the same using my credit union's online loan payment calculator. So to sum up, again, if you're doing a huge down payment like I'm planning to, and especially also if you live in California, but even if you don't, it could be beneficial to take a look at the numbers, and it may prove to be maybe not, again, massively different, but maybe it is still going to be in your financial favor to hold back $8,000 from your down payment and then just add FSD right after you take delivery of the truck and then pay that credit card off immediately. So clearly, I've been thinking about this a lot this week, so I wanted to see what all of you are thinking for your Cybertruck purchase as well. Thus, I made this the subject of this week's Patreon poll, which asked all of you, general production Cybertruck buyers, are you planning to get FSD? 39% of you, and I guess I now would not be in this group, but 39% said yes, I'm planning to buy FSD with my order, in other words, pre-delivery. Then 21% said I'm planning to get FSD, but on the $99 monthly subscription, which certainly makes a ton of sense if you're only planning to keep the Cybertruck for 5 or 6 years. Another 21%, and an equal 21%, voted that you're still undecided, which makes perfect sense. That is fair. You get the truck, see how you like it, and see if you want to do FSD. Maybe you do a 1-month test at $99, and if you super like it, then you either buy it or stay on the $99 plan. And then 14% said, no, I'm not planning to buy FSD either before or after delivery. And then just 5% of you, I guess I would be in this group now, 5% of you voted, yes, I'm planning to buy FSD sometime after delivery. Thank you all so much for voting, for leaving your comments as well. And again, just a thought exercise here. Next up this week, this one goes out to my European friends. If you've ever wanted to see the Tesla semi-truck up close and you live in Europe, well, you've got your first chance on your home turf to do so coming up. I saw this on Drive Tesla Canada, who noted, Tesla will be present at the IAA Transportation 2024 exhibition, which is scheduled for September 21st and 22nd in Hanover, Germany. It will take place the weekend, it's a weekend, September 21st and 22nd. This will be the first time the Tesla Semi will be shown in Europe. Well, I have to say from personal experience here, since I've had the pleasure a couple of different times, it is pretty neat to get to see the largest of all the Teslas, and also how different it is from a traditional semi-truck. So if you're in Europe, if you're in the neighborhood of Hanover this September, check it out. Before I get going with the main news stories this week, I wanted to say that I hope all of you who are kindly and generously supporting the podcast on Patreon at that $10 per month tier or higher enjoyed this week's Lightning Round mini episode, which was about my 5 favorite Tesla arcade games. So I left the Steam stuff out of this for those of you that have a newer S or X that can access Steam through your car. Just talking about the Tesla arcade video games, the ones that are baked into everybody's car. I went through and chose my 5 favorites. Of course, I work in video game media by day. I critique video games for a living. So maybe you'll find my opinion useful if you're curious, well, what games in my car should I check out? I give you my 5 favorites. If you get a lot out of the podcast, if you've been listening for a while and you're thinking, you know what, Ryan? Yes, now's a good time. I'm going to subscribe on Patreon. I'm going to back you. I mean, subscribe's a bad word because it's just a month-to-month thing you can cancel anytime. But I am going to support you on Patreon. Thank you for the podcast. You can get access to all 98 of the Lightning Round mini episodes. I do them every single week, exclusively for Patreon for that $10 per month tier or higher. There are 98 of them in there, so if you join the Patreon at that $10 per month tier or higher, you instantly get access to all 98 of them, as well as every new one that I'll do each successive week. So check the Patreon out if you get a chance. You can find it at patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. Don't forget that there is a 10% discount if you are so kind as to do a 1-year pledge, the annual pledge. So that's my way of saying thank you for being nice enough to commit for a year of support. I give you the 10% off. And Patreon has now enabled a free 7-day trial on that $10 per month tier. That's the most popular of all the tiers. So you can go sign up, do the 7-day trial, and just experience the perks without having to actually commit any money. And then if you like it and you think, yeah, this is pretty cool, I like these perks that Ryan throws out here, then you can just let it ride and let that $10 per month kick in, and I'd be super, super grateful if you would consider that. All right, let's get going on the news. Tesla released its 2023 Impact Report. I want to give a big credit this week to Tesla tipster Sawyer Merritt, who went through the whole thing and picked out some really good choice bits here that I'm also going to go through and give my take on. So starting with this one, Tesla is recycling enough batteries to make over 9,000 Model Y rear-wheel drive vehicles. This is as of Q4 of this past year, so it's very recent. Tesla achieved a 500-plus metric ton per month battery recycling throughput up at Giga Nevada, again in Q4. So this is a great, as I teased at the very top of the podcast, this for me is a really great anti-FUD talking point. And if you are newer to the podcast, if you're not familiar with what FUD is, if you've not heard that before, it stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So the misconceptions, the willful misinformation that you have probably seen people spread around. Actually, it's not even necessarily willful. I should retract that. I should rephrase that. But the misconceptions, the misinformation, whether it's intentional or not, that you've likely seen online if you've spent any time online, and maybe you've even heard it from people that you like in real life that just have heard it and are repeating what they've heard. So fear, uncertainty, and doubt is something that we as Tesla enthusiasts, Tesla owners, kind of have to face down, and we then have a choice of whether we want to try and correct these people, that particularly the accidental spreaders of FUD, the people that are doing it intentionally. That's a tougher nut to crack with those folks. But anyway, my point here is that this battery recycling point in the 2023 Impact Report that Tesla just released, that is a great FUD fighting piece of information, because it's just shows you that the thing that they'll say that you may have heard is, oh, well, it's these, they destroy the earth to mine. Like, no, I mean, everything, all of the core minerals, the earth materials in an electric car battery, they're all recyclable over and over and over again. And so now that we know that Tesla themselves is making some really awesome battery recycling progress, you can throw that back and say, hey, actually, all the materials in these battery packs are recyclable. So even when the car is no longer in service, the materials can be recycled. You don't have to keep going into the earth to get this stuff. And on top of that, this is about Tesla's own battery recycling efforts, which is in addition to what Tesla co-founder J.B. Straubel's new battery recycling company, Redwood Materials, is doing. They are doing it on a massive scale. So it's a team game here, folks. The more companies that are committed to recycling battery materials, the better off we all are. I'm glad to see Tesla ramping up their own internal efforts on this. Next, another great anti-FUD talking point is this. After approximately 3 years of driving, a Tesla EV's lifetime emissions are lower than those of a comparable internal combustion engine vehicle. While EVs today still emit more greenhouse gases during the manufacturing phase, including emissions from the supply chain, it takes about 3 years worth of driving for the total emissions from a Tesla vehicle to fall below that of a comparable ICE vehicle. So this is another one that you tend to hear about a lot. The whole, EVs are worse for the environment than gas cars are. Well, you can say to that person, again, particularly the ones that are not being malicious about it, you can say, well, yes, actually they in fact are, but only for the beginning of their life. They then quickly flip that script. Now, in my case, as I was just telling you at the top of the podcast, I got my registration renewal in the mail reminding me that, my car is just a couple months away from its 6th birthday, meaning that, and I'm not trying to get on any sort of pedestal here, but I'm just saying this as matter-of-factly as possible, that I am now on the right side of history with my car because I have now surpassed, I'm emitting fewer greenhouse gases overall with my car than a comparable 6-year-old internal combustion engine car. And I mean, probably to an even nicer degree because I'm fortunate enough to have solar panels on my roof now too for the past year and a few months. So I will take it. Okay, the next piece of the impact report is in the company-wide engagement feedback, over 80% of respondents agreed or strongly agreed that they are overall satisfied with working at Tesla. Well, I have heard time and time again that Tesla is, no joke, it is a really difficult place to work. It is not a chill desk job, no matter what your role in the company is. It is, to use one of Elon's favorite terms, hardcore, from everything I've ever heard, from directly from former employees, but also, secondhand. But I've also heard directly and secondhand that it's an incredibly satisfying place to work, that you feel like you're making a difference in the world when you work at Tesla. So, as such, this 80% job satisfaction rate, well, it seems to quantify that a little bit, which is awesome. Next, and there are several more, there's some good ones here. Tesla says they received a record 5.9 million job applications last year, a 64% increase versus 2022. That's crazy. They got 2/3 more job applications in 2023 as the year prior. That's wild. And probably because Tesla is a company that's making a difference and making super cool products, you get this. You get an insane number of job applicants, which in turn allows Tesla to hire amazing people, which in turn makes the company succeed in its mission to an even higher degree. This is one of those virtuous cycles, right? It's awesome. I mean, I feel a little bad for the recruiters and HR folks that have to go through, somehow filter through 5.9 million job applications. I know it's role by role, and it's not like one person has to sit there and go through almost 6 million job applications, but that is an incredible amount of interest by people who want to work at Tesla. I've got 1, 2, 3 more here for you. So the first of those is this. In 2023, Tesla's supercharger network achieved an average uptime rating of 99.97%, a new all-time high. And I have to be honest with you, this one gave me pause, and not because it isn't good news. It's obviously awesome news. 99.97% uptime is about as actually close to perfect as you can get. But it did stop me for a moment because Elon had said, after getting rid of the supercharging team, that they were going to focus on uptime of existing sites and not as much on network expansion. And so when I hear that statistic, it's like, well, it sure sounds like there doesn't really need to be an extra focus on uptime because the team was already hitting that goal out of the park to a literal near perfect degree. So let's see how this number looks next year, meaning this year, on next year's report in the wake of the, shall we say, turmoil on that supercharging team. Hopefully the number is just as high as it was in 2023. That'd be awesome. Next up, Tesla says our global supercharger network was 100% renewable again in 2023, achieved through a combination of on-site resources and annual renewable electricity matching. We also continue to match some of our customers' home charging in California with 100% renewable electricity matching annually. So what I love about this, besides the obvious, is that if you remember back, this was Tesla's goal with the supercharger network from day one. And they have once again achieved that goal. And it was a big goal, and they keep hitting it. It means no matter where you drive your car when you're away from home, your fuel, if you're using a Tesla supercharger, is coming from a renewable source, which is just fantastic. And finally, in the impact report is this. In highlighting how Tesla owners use their car as their primary vehicle, Tesla says that Model Y owners drive, on average, 13,768 miles per year. And I have to say, this might be my favorite stat from this entire impact report. Even if you buy a Tesla and range anxiety overwhelms you such that you don't take your car on road trips, the fact is, unless you're road tripping all the time, you're still using your Tesla the other 99% of the time. But we all know what happens, right? I guarantee a bunch of you are smiling right now just listening to this because you know what I'm going to say. Even if you, understandably, are a bit nervous about taking your Model Y on a long road trip, the more you own the car, the longer you own the car, the more you drive it locally in your area, what happens? The more confident you get in the car, you get over that range anxiety, which leads you to be more willing to take it anywhere you want to go. And with a fleet average of almost 14,000 miles per year here, that tells you that Model Y customers get very comfortable driving electric after a bit of time with their Model Y, and you love to see it. Next up this week, I hate to pivot to some not awesome news, but it'll get better after this. Drive Tesla Canada reports that Tesla has reportedly cut Model Y production a bit at Giga Shanghai through this month. Drive Tesla Canada says Tesla has cut production of the Model Y at Giga Shanghai in recent months, a move that will reportedly see lower production of the electric SUV in China through at least June. According to data from the China Association of Automobile Manufacturers, or CAAM, Tesla's output of the Model Y dropped to 49,498 units in March and further dropped to 36,610 units in April. These figures represent year-over-year decreases of 17.7% and 33%, respectively. This lower level of Model Y production will reportedly run through at least June and is in response to lower demand and the ongoing price war in China, according to a report from Reuters citing a source familiar with the plans. It is unclear if the production cut will extend past June or expand to other factories such as Giga Berlin or Giga Texas and Fremont in the US. Overall, CAAM data showed Giga Shanghai's production of Model 3 and Model Y vehicles during the first 4 months of 2024 was 5% lower than the same period in 2023, despite a 10% increase in Model 3 production. Well, as we've talked about before, it's tough out there for everybody right now. Tesla, of course, gets the bulk of the headlines, for better and for worse, and if you ask me, why does it seem like it's worse? It's for the worse far more often than it's for the better, but I digress. But other automakers out there are so spooked by the downturn in the car market and in the EV market specifically as well, that they've been backing off of their EV programs, which of course is the last thing that they should be doing. And I want to pause here to give a shout out to Hyundai, who I read an article about this week that says they are doubling down on EVs despite this market downturn. Hyundai, good on you. History will prove you right. But we all know what Tesla's cooking up to help turn that tide back fully in its favor. Because let's be honest, the tide is still in Tesla's favor. It's still going great for Tesla overall. And that thing that they're cooking up is Project Juniper. We know that the Model Y refresh is coming, and either my theory that I shared recently is going to be right, and it's going to be a global simultaneous launch of the updated Model Y, or my theory is wrong, and it will still debut either way out of Giga Shanghai, just like the 3 Fresh did, aka the artist formerly known as Project Highland. Either way, Giga Shanghai is definitely going to be rolling out the Juniper as soon as the Juniper is ready to go. And by ready to go, I mean ready to go into production. And so not only will that give a nice design jolt to, I remind you, the world's most popular new car, the number one selling new car, and that new car, while continuing to crush it in sales, it has also looked virtually unchanged for the past 4+ years since its debut. Quick side note, by the way, does anybody remember that the first Model Y deliveries ended up happening, of course by sheer coincidence, literally days before the pandemic shut down the world back in mid-March of 2020? Just a strange little historical footnote for the Model Y, that its origin, as at least in terms of the product launch, is kind of weird. It's definitely weirder than any of the other Teslas, that's for sure. Anyway, though, in addition to giving the world's best-selling car a makeover, the Juniper will also be cheaper for Tesla to build. We know that, allowing them to either up their profit margins per car or sell the car for less money, or maybe even both. And if and when interest rates come back down, I say watch out, because the Model Ys, if and when that happens, the Model Y with Juniper probably going to have a multi-month wait time again, like they did in the back half of the pandemic when the chip shortage was happening. And even though prices were going way up, people wanted cars, needed cars, they were paying the premium, and production was capped basically because of the chip shortage, as you all know, and people were just gobbling up every Model Y that Tesla could make. And as such, you had a 4 to 6 month wait if you wanted a Model Y, unless you were willing to pony up for the performance version, in which case the wait time was 1 or 2 months, which we know what Tesla was doing with that, and I don't blame them. They were saying, hey, if you want to spend a little more, we'll get you the car sooner. But now, today, wait times are minimal on the Model Y, but they could easily shoot way back up if some things in Tesla's control and some things outside of Tesla's control happen to converge. And I will say to this, as always, I remain completely bullish on Tesla from the vehicle side of the business. It's fair to say that Model S and Model X might never do more than 50 to 60,000 units per year each, meaning a total of 100 to 120,000 for S and X, because they do get reported as one combined S and X number. But the 3 and the Y are going to be very appealing for years to come, so that's another reason to be bullish. The Cybertruck is going to settle in at 250,000 units per year, and then the Model 2.5 is going to be here before we know it, and that's going to really deliver the finishing blow to the internal combustion engine vehicle. So hopefully the new Roadster finally gets built after the 2.5 as a, if you will, a victory cigar for Tesla to light up. Like, all right, we did it. We've achieved all of the price objectives that we always set out to achieve. Let's finally build this butt-kicking supercar, this world-dominating sports car. Let's do it. So that's how I see things going. Before I continue with this week's news, there is still plenty more to talk about. I wanted to mention my friends at Accelerate Auto and their X-Care extended warranty made specifically for Teslas. You might wonder, well, what do I need that for? And the answer is, maybe you don't, but if you're planning on hanging onto your car for a while, like I'm doing, you may want to cover some of it or all of it. And if you're wondering, well, what do you mean by some of it? Meaning you can get a general extended warranty coverage plan for as little as 2 years, 25,000 miles, or as many as 10 years and 125,000 additional miles, or anywhere in between that works for you. So you can totally customize it how you like. And so you can get the entire car covered, bumper to bumper. You can get the battery and drivetrain covered in addition, or just by itself. If you just want to do a battery and drivetrain policy and not worry about the rest of the car, you can do that too. And the nice thing here is the fine folks at Accelerate Auto are kindly offering a $100 discount for Ride the Lightning listeners. So to get your policy, again, customized to your liking, and get that $100 off, go to their website, which is accelerateauto.com/xcare, spelled XCELERATEAUTO.com/XCARE. And the discount to get that $100 off, the discount code, is Lightning. So thank you so much to the folks at Accelerate Auto for continuing to offer that nice little discount to my listeners. Let's get back to the news, shall we? There is plenty more to talk about. If, like me, you've been wondering what the status on Giga Mexico is as Tesla pivoted their plans away from the Gen 3 car over to the aforementioned Model 2.5 instead? Well, Teslarati has an update. Tesla Giga Mexico's construction is still moving forward, shared Nuevo Leon's Secretary of Economy. Tesla's new Gigafactory has already started preliminary construction and attracted a few suppliers to Nuevo Leon. Recently, Iván Rivas, Nuevo Leon's Secretary of Economy, confirmed that the state maintains a good relationship with Tesla and regularly communicates with the company. Rivas also added that Tesla and Nuevo Leon are currently discussing incentives related to Giga Mexico. Quote, "We have not had any change in signal. We also work hand in hand with them. For example, right now in the incentive contract, the communication is very close. We continue working. The only thing that I could not say and that is not defined is when Tesla is going to start. But Tesla is coming. Tesla is coming," said Rivas. The incentives Tesla and Nuevo Leon are currently discussing are related to Giga Mexico's infrastructure, making the factory more accessible. Expanding the nearby Monterrey-Saltillo highway is part of the incentive package, allowing Nuevo Leon to add another lane to the two-lane highway. Incentives will also help build bridges around Tesla Giga Mexico, making entering and leaving the premises easier. Lastly, the incentive package will help Tesla build the infrastructure for treated water from Giga Mexico. Thank you to Teslarati for that write-up. I have to say here, I was a little bit concerned about the Giga Mexico project after Tesla's, shall we call it, strategic pivot for their next mass market vehicle, moving from the full-blown Gen 3 architecture over to what I've been calling the Model 2.5. I mean, not to mention, in fairness as well, the layoffs. There were a lot of layoffs, and so, well, how's that affect Giga Mexico? And I think that concern was somewhat, maybe not validated, but let's say reinforced by the radio silence on Giga Mexico since they broke ground compared to Giga Texas and Giga Berlin, which, as you remember, were being built basically in parallel, where I feel like we had very frequent, if borderline constant, updates on those facilities. My question is, will Tesla build the Cybercab at Giga Mexico using the next-gen assembly method that they'd planned for that factory and for the Gen 3 car? Or will they build the Cybercab at Giga Texas, where they already have the equipment and the experienced team members to stamp and bend the hard freaking stainless, the HFS, and thus look to do the Model 2.5 out of Giga Mexico? Or might Giga Mexico do both? We know that Elon had previously said that the Generation 3 car would start in Texas, but since it's not that same vehicle anymore, my guess is that Model 2.5 will start in Texas because it's, well, presumably, or at least in my humble opinion, the top priority for the company. I mean, if Elon were sitting here right now, maybe he'd say that the Cybercab is in fact the top priority. I'm not sure. Maybe somebody will ask him that question at the annual shareholder meeting coming up in a couple weeks. Like, what's the top priority? Is it Model 2.5 or is it Cybercab? And he probably would say both, actually. He'd probably say, yes, we have to get cheaper cars out to people, but we also need to continue to push on autonomy. Alrighty, glad to hear that Giga Mexico is humming along. Next this week, I know I've done a number of stories about police departments getting Teslas to test out as police vehicles, but if you remember the very first one, it's been a while, it's been a few years, the very, very first one was the Bargersville, Indiana police fleet. And in fact, I have it in my notes here, it was 5 years ago. And over the course of that 5 years, they have expanded their fleet to 13 Teslas. And well, we've got an update on how it's going here 5 years later. And well, it's going about as well as all of us, we Tesla fans who know how good these cars are and how minimally how minimal maintenance they need would expect. Here's the story, courtesy of WRTV, the local ABC affiliate.
The suburban town of Bargersville could perhaps be seen as a leader in the electric vehicle revolution. Officials there tell WRTV's Vic Reichert switching out gasoline-operated police cruisers for all electric vehicles is more about saving green than going green.
Over the last 5 years, Bargersville's police department has swapped most of its gas vehicles for Teslas.
Money. It's all about the money. We started the program because I needed 2 officers, and yeah, it was a risk in the very beginning, but it's proven now.
Police Chief Todd Bertram says Bargersville's fleet of 13 Tesla police cars saves taxpayers about $80,000 a year in gasoline costs. He says the town uses savings to hire 2 officers. One of the newest officers is veteran Cody St. John, who transferred to Bargersville a year ago after serving with IMPD and with the Morgan County Sheriff's Office. St. John stands 6 feet 2 inches and says he's had no issues trading the typical police cruiser for a Tesla.
At first, it took a little getting used to, but now if I have to get a tire replaced or something like that on this car, and I'm in a gas car again, I can't wait for my car to come back.
The adoption of a green energy policy may be seen as controversial or even as a political statement, but the town's clerk-treasurer said this move is more about saving green than being green. Bargersville officers still have 6 gas trucks and SUVs in their fleet. The police chief says they burn through about $2,900 a month in gas, but with the 13 Teslas, the monthly electric bill comes to about $600.
It works. It's working. It saves a lot of money, and I have to think there's a lot of agencies in the country that are like mine, that it would work for.
Vic Reichert, WRTV.
Well, the clerk-treasurer of Bargersville says the department sold its first 2019 Tesla police cruiser and got $17,000. He says the trade-in value of a typical gas-powered cruiser is $5,000 if they're lucky.
Well, let's be honest. The money is what's going to matter most at the end of the day for a use case like this, although the financial savings of an EV is what matters most for a lot of Tesla buyers. There's nothing wrong with that. And I guarantee you that other police departments are going to see this report, and now that there's a good sample size put in here, courtesy of the Bargersville Police Department, I think we're going to see this scale up quickly, because the economics clearly work on this. And again, huge kudos to Bargersville. Now, they took a little bit of a risk here. Yeah, it was a risk at the time. Would a Tesla work as a police vehicle? Would it do everything that they needed it to do? And would it be reliable? It's passed every single test, including the financial ones, which those are the ones that we could have all told them up front were going to work. But glad to see it actually happen. Good stuff. Happy to do that 5-year update on the Bargersville Police Department. All right, that's it for a busy week of Tesla news. Stick with me, though. I've got a good number of your excellent Ride the Lightning hotline phone calls teed up and ready to go right after this.
Hi, this is Franz von Holzhausen, and you're listening to Ride the Lightning with Ryan McCaffrey, the Tesla unofficial podcast.
Time for your questions, comments, discussion topics here in the Ride the Lightning hotline. This is the part of the show where you can be heard. All you got to do is call in and you have a chance to be featured on an upcoming episode. There are 2 easy ways that you can call in. Either use your smartphone's built-in voice recording software, record your question. Please try to keep it to 90 seconds or less so that I can get to as many people each week as possible. And then email that file to me at my podcast email address, which is simply teslapodcast@gmail.com. Or you can take that same 90-second or less question and call in, leave a message on the Ride the Lightning hotline anytime, day or night. It's a toll-free number, and that number is 1-888-989-8752. Again, that's 1-888-989-TSLA. And if you know someone special with an upcoming birthday, anniversary, graduation, or some other special occasion, you can give them a unique gift of recorded voices from friends and family telling them why they're special. The recordings can be podcasted or put onto a keepsake. Visit lifeonrecord.com if you'd like to learn more. Kicking us off this week is Chris from Chicago.
Hi Ryan, Chris from Chicago here. Wanted to put my 2 cents in regarding Scott's question from last week about when using full self-driving in the Cybertruck, if the steering wheel would move or not. Now, in the brief 30 seconds that I drove my Cybertruck before it broke, side note, still in the shop almost a month later with no resolution in sight. But I did think of a scenario where full self-driving would have the Squircle moving, and why? I mean, honestly, mechanically, you don't. It doesn't need to do anything because of the drive-by-wire. But for instance, if it's in your full self-driving, you're making a turnaround wherever, and for whatever reason the car tells you to take over because it it loses camera or whatever. If you're in the middle of a turn and the wheels are pitched to the left, and the steering wheel straight on, and you go to take over in that moment, well, now the steering wheel, the Squircle and the drive wheels are out of sync. I mean, I suppose the Squircle could, correct before you have to take over, but I don't know. I guess we'll see. Hopefully I will know at some point, someday in the future, at some lifetime, when I receive something. But that's my 2 cents. Thanks for the show, Ryan. Bye.
Great point, Chris. In fact, shout out to Steph, who emailed me about this as well. Steve from New Jersey. And by the way, Steve, congratulations on your new Cybertruck. As well as Joel, also from New Jersey, who called in with the same thought. You're all right. For safety reasons, it probably does need to move. That Squircle needs to move in the event that you need to take over. It makes total sense, and I get it. But it would have been super cool to have it not move, wouldn't it? I guess that's what the Cybercab will be for, when there won't be any wheel at all. But thank you, Chris. And by the way, Chris, I really hope that you get your Cybertruck back from service soon. For those that don't know, which is all of you, I've been getting emails and updates from Chris. He got his Cybertruck and it suffered a catastrophic failure literally minutes after he drove it off the lot. And it sounds like it's been in service pretty much ever since here. So if there's anybody at Tesla in the Chicago area who can help get things moving in the right direction for Chris, he's a good guy, and it'd be awesome if somebody at Tesla could help him out. Next up is Ryan from Nevada.
Hello, Ryan. This is Ryan from Nevada. I had a double question, if you don't mind. I was wondering what your opinion is, and if there's any harm in buying a used wall connector, Gen 3 wall connector. I noticed you can find them cheaper, a little bit cheaper on eBay. So what are your thoughts on that? And then also, do you have any information on this mini refresh we keep hearing about a little bit that may have started over in China? The mini refresh for the Model Y, where they're going to add a rear screen and maybe a little LED light strip or something like that. Wondering when that's coming out, if that's going to come to the U.S. anytime soon before Juniper hits. So just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Again, love the podcast. Thank you very much.
Hello, fellow Ryan. To your first question about buying a Generation 3 wall connector, if you can A, verify that it works, and B, get a picture of the inside of it with the cover off to show that everything looks good, then I would feel totally fine about it personally. Now, if any electricians in the audience are frantically shouting, "No!" at your audio device right now as I'm talking, please email me. I am very open to being educated and informed if in fact there are any red flags that Ryan and myself, for future reference, should be aware of. Now, second, regarding the mini Model Y refresh that brought the second row screen and the LED ambient lighting strip to the existing Model Ys that are coming out of Giga Shanghai that you talked about, I would honestly say it's a 50-50 coin toss of a chance between now and the launch of the Juniper. We've seen changes go into effect in Shanghai that make their way over here 3 to 4 months later. And we've seen changes go into effect in Shanghai that make their way over here much longer after that. But They do seem to happen. That's the common denominator. The question is whether or not Tesla will tinker with anything at all on their best-selling car in the world. Maybe, maybe not. Hence my coin flips chance here that I feel like this is. I know that's not helpful to you, and I apologize for that, but I can't confidently say one way or another. All I can do is look at past Tesla history, which suggests that it will eventually happen. It's just a matter of whether or not it happens before the Juniper arrives. Thank you for your call, Ryan. I've got time for one more call this week. It is from Randy in Tennessee.
Yes, Ryan, this is Randy from Tennessee. Just a thought, it may be wishful thinking on the status of the new superchargers. Could it be that the AI robots are at a spot or very close where they could be the ones installing these new superchargers? Just wondering about your thoughts on that. All right.
Hey, Randy, thank you for calling in. I definitely think we will get to that point, for sure. Like, there's no question, no doubt in my mind we will get there. For the time being, though, Optimus just isn't anywhere near mature enough for that, at least based on what Tesla has shown us publicly. For now, they've still got it doing the most very basic of movements, such as picking up 4680 battery cells off of a production line and loading them into a box. But the progress is rapid, we've seen that, and eventually, yeah, I could definitely see them being put into the field to help potentially get things like supercharger stalls installed. Thanks so much for calling in. Thank you to everybody that kindly took the time to call in. I will get to more of your Ride the Lightning phone calls next week. If you'd like to call in, respond to either another caller or something I've said at some point during this podcast, you can call in one of the two easy ways that I gave you the instructions for at the top of this segment. But I'm not done just yet. Stick around. I've got a little bit more Ride the Lightning coming up for you right after this. Well, as most, if not all of you know, my canine companion with lowercase c's, that would be Daisy the boxer, means a lot to me, and Maggie before her. And my canine companion with capital C's, that would be Zelina, who we turned in for her professional training a few months ago, also meant a lot to me and my family. And as I've done these first couple of months, I wanted to share with you Zelina's progress report that they send out once a month as part of her professional training. Now, it's a 6-month goal, basically. It's a 6-month process. And if she makes it all the way through, then she will graduate and become a service dog and be paired up with a person who needs her. And as I've said before, Canine Companions, it's all nonprofit. The recipient of the dog doesn't have to pay for anything. It's all nonprofit. It's all just, in my humble opinion, a wonderful cause that my family and I are proud to be a part of. And I want to thank Michael from Millbrae for getting my family and I into this. And Zelina, her third progress report came through, and I just wanted to share a little bit of that with you real quick. She once again is exhibiting all of the good behaviors that they're looking for that they check off in part 1. And then in part 2, there's the bad behaviors. And she, again, only has one. And it's still the same one, equipment sensitivity. But I'll read you the notes here. And it sounds like they're not super concerned about that, which leads me to believe that it seems like, again, I haven't been through this before, but it seems like Zelina is very much on her way to graduating and becoming a full-blown official service dog. So in her notes, the trainer writes, Zelina continues to progress with retrieve and has worked through a variety of different dumbbells and has begun easy novel items. So they're describing here, just to pull back for a second, they're training the dog to do all kinds of things that maybe someone with a physical inability to do those mobile things like open a door or a cabinet or something, they're training the dog to help with these things. So they're using things like dumbbells to train. So continuing, they say she has progressed well with push and can initiate on drawers, cabinet doors, closet doors, and push plates, meaning like to open if you see like a handicapped accessible door where you push the button and then the door automatically opens, that they're teaching her to push that with either, I presume, her nose rather than a paw, and push plates, and has begun learning how to execute this behavior confidently next to equipment, which I presume means things like walkers or wheelchairs. She has continued to show equipment sensitivity, but will initiate into her vest with a touch cue, meaning her uniform basically, with a touch cue for targeting and follow through. So she's not doing it on her own yet, but if they lure her into the vest with presumably a treat, of kibble, she'll do it. She is progressing well with nudge and cover. On a recent field trip, Zelina was low management, checking in with her handler, and verbally responsive for the majority of her skills executed. So, again, a little bittersweet for my family and I. Like, we miss that dog tremendously, but this is what she was born to do, and it is looking like she is going to fulfill the potential of what she was born to do. So that's the part where, the pride and the joy that I take in her going to help someone, as she was literally born to do, outweighs the sorrow of us having to say goodbye to her. So I will just say once again, I don't want this to seem like a paid ad, because it certainly isn't, but if you think you might be interested in this, you and your family might want to raise a service dog puppy with the goal of sending that dog off to professional training, and hopefully that dog becomes a service dog and helps somebody out. Canine Companions is a nationwide nonprofit. They have different regions, so it doesn't matter where in the United States you are. You can volunteer and be a puppy raiser if that's of interest to you. So you can learn more. I mean, you can always ask me. You can email me, teslapodcast@gmail.com. I'd be happy to talk with you about it if you have questions. And you can go to the Canine Companions website, which is the word canine, not the letter K and the number 9. So canine.org, canine.org, if you'd like to learn more there. I've got a pro tip of the week for you to pivot back to all things Tesla. It comes from Charles in Los Angeles. Charles, take it away.
Hello, Ryan. This is Charles calling from Los Angeles. I wanted to call with a quick tip that I'm not sure all of your listeners knows, is that by default on the touch screen, when you press on the time information, it actually brings up the calendar window. And I think that's a pretty cool tip and very handy. Thank you very much for the show. Love everything that you do. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Charles, I love this little shortcut. I have never tried this, and I didn't know this one, so thank you very much. You have added to my Tesla knowledge base today, and I always appreciate that. If anybody else out there has a good pro tip of the week, please feel free to send it my way so that I can grow my Tesla knowledge base some more, and I can hopefully help do the same for you as well. Send your pro tips in the same way that you send the regular Ride the Lightning hotline phone calls, which I gave you the 2 easy methods to choose from there a little while ago. Before I hit the road this week, I want to mention some friends of Ride the Lightning that hopefully can be of use to you sooner or later. Starting with abstractocean.com, they've got a million different great aftermarket accessories for all 5 of the currently in production vehicles, including the Cybertruck. So check them out at abstractocean.com. A lot of lighting kits, different lighting-related things, such as the puddle lights. You know, when you open your door and there's a little light on the bottom part of your door jamb, on the door itself, not the door jamb, where it just shines down and just helps you, see on the ground below you. Well, you can swap that light out pretty easily for something like a Tesla T logo or a Model 3 logo or Y or what have you. So Abstract Ocean has a bunch of that stuff, not to mention the rear footwell lighting kit for the interior that lights the side of the front seats so that when you're sitting in the second row, it looks a little nicer back there. Just all kinds of stuff. Check them out, abstractocean.com. The coupon code to get 15% off of your first order at abstractocean.com is RTL Podcast. That's all one word there, no spaces. RTL Podcast gets you 15% off of your first order. So check them out, abstractocean.com. The Snap Plate and the Snap Plate Plus are the front license plate brackets that I recommend if you either want or legally need to have a front license plate on your Tesla. Get yours at everyamp.com/RTL. There's a coupon code here as well for a discount, which that code is simply RTL. And the Snap Plate is, it's a nice, super minimalist design. It'll snap on and off in seconds, but when it's on there nice and secure. Make those fix-it tickets go away. If you, like me, prefer not to have a front license plate on, but the law requires it. So you can take it off for car shows, for if you're cleaning, detailing your car. You can put it back on if you're going to be going over a bridge or toll road or going to be parked at a parking meter, something like that. Then don't forget, too, the newer Snap Plate Plus has stainless steel reinforcements, and it's designed to not give. It's designed to be super tough. So whichever one you want to go with, get yours at everyamp.com/RTL, and don't forget the coupon code RTL. If you're considering solar panels for your home or business, I, just as a friendly encouragement, suggest you keep budgetsafesolar.com on your short list, because you're going to check through several options, no doubt. It's a big purchase. But check out budgetsafesolar.com. They do also offer home battery storage now as part of their installations. In fact, I just posted a picture of this past week on my Instagram. My brother-in-law, who lives elsewhere in the Bay Area, about half an hour south of me, and we go visit them a lot, he's doing a budget-safe solar installation. The hardware's all there. He's just waiting for the utility company to flip the switch for him. His roof is beautifully adorned with solar panels, and on the side of his house, he's now got 2 gorgeous Tesla Powerwalls. So love to see that. If that sounds good to you and you end up going through with a solar purchase at budgetsafesolar.com, I just humbly ask that you use the referral code RTL. Next up, Immaculate Reflections, an amazingly talented car detailer here in the greater San Francisco Bay Area. If you're in town or going to be in the area with a car that you love, whether it's your Tesla or maybe something else cool in your garage that you cherish, bring it over to Immaculate Reflections, and maybe you want to get some paint protection film on the front of the car or the key areas of the car or all of the car, which is what I did. And it's, as you've heard me describe over the years, it saved my original paint several times. Maybe you want to do paint correction, get all the flaws in that paint finish out and get that paint finish looking as good as it possibly can. Maybe you want to do ceramic coating, which is you've probably heard about ceramic coating by now. I feel like it's kind of gotten into the general car enthusiast consciousness now, and everybody kind of gets, oh yeah, this is like the next generation version of waxing a car. The difference is it lasts 3 to 5 plus years instead of having to do a wax every 6 months on your car. So I've got that on mine too, and I'm so glad that I do. Very grateful for that. And Immaculate Reflections did it all on my car, and they can do whatever works for you and your budget on your car. Just visit them at irdetailing.com. You can reach out through there, and when you do, mention that you're a Ride the Lightning listener, and there will be a nice little discount waiting for you for any service that you book in, and hopefully they'll take good care of you, as they have done for me. In fact, I promise they will. I guarantee they will. And finally, the Patreon. I mentioned it a little earlier in the podcast, but this podcast is and always has been and always will be totally free. and I'm grateful to all of you for taking the time to listen to it each week. But if you do enjoy listening every week and you do get something out of it and you'd like to give a little something back, the Patreon is the way to do that. My Patreon page can be found at patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. And there are different support tiers there. You choose the one that looks the best to you. The tiers start at just $5 a month. And I give a little thank you reward for every tier. But those thank yous stack up. So the higher you go, you get all the thank yous from that tier and all the tiers below. So that $5 a month tier will get you early access to each week's podcast. The $10 per month tier, that most popular one that I talked about a little earlier, that one will get you the early access each week, but it will also get you those weekly lightning round mini episodes that I do. And most of the time, they're very evergreen topics. So even if you join the Patreon at that $10 tier today, it's not like you're going to have 97 just old news mini episodes. No, these are evergreen topics. I mean, you've heard me every week I mention what the topic is just so you kind of know what it's going to be if you're curious. This week was, as I mentioned earlier, my personal top 5 favorite Tesla arcade games. In recent weeks, I've done I ranked all the wheel designs. I forget what I did last week. I'm blanking on it now, but I know it's every week, so it's like I have trouble keeping them all straight because I'm doing them very often. But anyway, I would be humbled and grateful if you saw fit in your heart to consider supporting me on Patreon. And again, you can do that at patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. Patreon is spelled Patreon. If you're not already following this podcast on your favorite podcast service, you can do that first by locating me on your favorite podcast service, whether it's Apple Podcasts or TuneIn or Spotify or YouTube Podcasts. And the best way to find me is just type in Ride the Lightning Tesla Podcast. That should bring me up without any question. That should dig it up for you. So you can click the follow button. It doesn't cost anything. And what that does is every time there's a new episode, which of course is every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific, you will get a push notification that says, hey, new episode of Ride the Lightning. And you can just tap that, take you straight to it. You can listen to it at your convenience. You don't have to think about going to find the podcast each week. It will just push out to you automatically. And what else? Referral code's over. Oh, email address. I might have mentioned it earlier, but if you'd like to email me about Tesla things for any reason, you can email me at teslapodcast@gmail.com. I'm on X and I'm on Instagram. If you'd like to follow me on either of those social media platforms, I have the same username on each one, and that username is DMC_Ryan. Finally, before I get out of here, I would like to say a thank you to the upper tier Patreon backers, the extra generous folks who, as one of their perks, one of their stacking thank you perks, they get their names shouted out at the end of each show, and it's time for that now. So let's start with the Plaid level supporters. These folks are grandfathered in. The Plaid tier is officially no more, but these folks very kindly and generously continue to support me at that tier, and so I'll continue to give them all of the perks and rewards and thank yous that they are entitled to. Thank you so much to George Cassiopo, Logan Willis, Peter Chalet, Eric Randolph, Dory and Steve Guberman, the Tesla Owners Club of Taiwan, Ron Lee, Charlie Gillespie, Dennis Peak, Jeff Angwin, Chase Cabanillas, the Lydia family, Aaron Altschul, Jared Brown, Jerome Strack, Jamie Dalton, Mike and Barbara from Louisville, Matt Nixon, the Tesla Owners Club of Wisconsin, Ish, Not Elon Musk, Peter, and the Bear Boys of Colorado. Next up, the Maximum Plaid tier, and we've got, as I record this here on late Friday night, tomorrow, Saturday, June 1st, is going to be our monthly Zoom hangout for the upper tier Patreon backers. I also invite, as just a one-time courtesy, thank you invite to anybody that joins the Patreon for the first time or upgrades their pledge. And then it's the maximum plaid and higher folks that get invited every month. And we've got a great group, a lot of regulars. It's been a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to that tomorrow because I'll be out of town in Los Angeles, busy working this coming next weekend. So we're doing it tomorrow, looking forward to it. And the Maximum Plaid backers that I hope to see and chat with at this month's Patreon Zoom Hangout are Jonathan Wales, Cameron Clark, Daniel Grummer, Seth Capello, Nick and Tony, the Galpin family, Ryan from New York City, Darren Nickel, Kaz Barnes, Brett Libano, Patrick Wisniewski, Gil Cabrera, Todd Badger, Joe Edgel, Kevin Yank, the Tesla Owners Club of San Joaquin Valley, Michael Williams, Will Stedman, Justin Perez, Jeremy Harris, Chris Beach, Tom Mills, Corey O'Donnell, Aaron, John Cody, Joel Sapp, Paul Casarino, Richard Corley, Chris Osborne, KB, Doug Carey, Adam Lavoie, ContactOneCallCenter.com, Jason Chalukas, Travis Krenzel, Bruce Otterstein, Tom Behan, Josh Pennington, John from Cream Ridge, New Jersey, Sean Tisdale, Dustin Hart, Michael Gallo, Derek Finley, Charles Clement, Rav, Adam Christie, and Damon Klein. And finally, an extra big thanks goes out to the Roadster in Space tier backers who, for their ultra generosity, get all the perks, including the monthly Patreon Hangout invite, and if they elect to choose it each month, they get a one-on-one Patreon Hangout with me, and I always have fun at those. So big thanks goes out to the Roadster in Space tier backers. They are Pete White, Lyle Austin, Steve Radspinner. Steve, if you're listening, hopefully you're going to be at the chat tomorrow, the Hangout. I know Steve is expecting a Cyber Beast Cybertruck very soon, so I'd love to hear from Steve about that. Fernando Cordero, Lawton from Chicago, Sean Neidig, Neil Weaver, Jackson Wallace, Rolf and Jennifer Evers, Howard Anthony Smith, Victoria Iacovetto, Tesla Hitchhiker 42, Kara Weston, Robert from near Philly, Kristen Rumble, American Home Contractors, and GetAmber.com. And with that, we've come to the end of Ride the Lightning episode 461. Let's see here. It's May 31st, Friday night as I'm recording this, which means we're now less than 2 months away from the big takeover event, where I'll be moderating some panels, doing some hosting duties there, and hopefully meeting a bunch of you. Like I said, we're going to do a Ride the Lightning listener meetup. Just got to find the exact time and spot within the venue to just all meet up. But everybody that's going to be there, looking forward to that. There was an informal version of that last year. Just a number of you were there and found me, and we got to chat and say hi, and that was great. So we're trying to formalize it a little bit more this year, so that it's not just me getting to say hi to all of you, but all of you getting to say hi to each other and making some friends that way too. So less than 2 months to go. It's coming up fast. With that, my friends, happy electric motoring, and I'll see you back here next week. I'll be in Los Angeles.
Elon Musk, people don't like Elon Musk. The guy founded PayPal and Tesla, and people are like, yeah, but he's a troll and a bad dad. I'm like, so was mine. He did nothing to fight climate change. Also, have you been in a Tesla? Have you been in a Tesla? My buddy let me drive his Tesla. I laughed out loud at how fast it went. Been clinically depressed my entire life, on dozens of medications, in a Tesla for 13 seconds, cured forever.
I mean, I think A Tesla is the most fun thing you could possibly buy ever. That's what it's meant to be. Our goal is to make it's not exactly a car. It's actually a thing to maximize enjoyment. It's maximum fun.